Hello, podcast listeners. This is your host with the most, JJ Gordon. I've had a little bit to drink, but don't worry. I'm also in Washington, D.C., so no shenanigans are taking place. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World, and I haven't told you anything that's happening in it, so it'll all be a surprise.
And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
JJ, Angela Lansbury delivers a bravura performance as Penelope Keeling in The Shell Seekers. Hailed by the critics as, quote, powerful, says the Boston Herald, touching, New York Daily News, and profoundly moving, says the Chicago Sun-Times.
She's seeking shells, or it's a name of a group who seeks shells?
Given an opportunity to trade her most cherished possession for comfort and security, Penelope must take a good look at her future. With 3 grown children and a lifetime of memories, she realizes that something is missing. The simple joy she knew as a child playing on the beach. So she embarks on an incredible journey, 50 years into her past, to discover the secret to happiness for her friends, her family, and herself. Yeah, this is The Shell Seekers. This is a VHS tape I picked up for you the other day for your Angela Lansbury. This is the most photoshopped Angela Lansbury photo I think I've ever seen on the cover of this.
And really? Here's the thing. She needs to be photoshopped. I mean, I love Angela Lansbury, but like at one point we're like, she's not wrinkly enough. She's too wrinkly. There are constantly going back and forth on deciding exactly what level of age we want Angela Lansbury to be.
Yeah, and now she's not with us anymore, right?
She is not. She passed away 2 years ago.
That's what I thought. Okay, I couldn't remember when it was. But how you doing? How are you feeling getting off your flight?
Okay, so let me start with the beginning. We recorded a great episode of JJ Meets World, like a phenomenal episode of JJ Meets World. It involved Tucker and I having an in-depth discussion about coffee mugs that I really did think was really just excellent. And
I haven't picked up my mug, by the way. I still haven't done that.
Oh, you haven't picked up your mug yet?
No,
but you know you want to get a good new office mug, something that defines you.
I'm on the hunt for one, for sure.
So, turns out that when we recorded it, I actually saved it to a server that I don't have access to. And so I called my IT guy, and my IT guy said, well, there's nothing I can do until Monday because I actually need to be in the building. So, long story short, I ruined it for everybody. Maybe we'll get it back, but potentially not. And on top of that, I am currently in Washington, D.C. on an honor flight right now. And so I told Tucker, hey, listen, I'm going to need a little bit of grace because we'll have to record this a Sunday evening when I get to my hotel room. But let me tell you what it took to even get to my hotel room, Tucker. So First of all, I have been awake since 3:30 in the morning after a bad night's sleep when I went to bed at 11 o'clock. So I am on an honor flight, which is one of the coolest experiences of my entire life. I am in the orange bus. We identify the buses by color. The bus itself is not orange, but my lanyard is. And there's a sign in the window that says orange bus. So the honor flight, for those of you who do not know, is an all expenses paid free trip for veterans to go to Washington, D.C. and take in the monuments dedicated to their service. So on my honor flight right now, there are a bunch of great guys who served during the Vietnam War. We've got one guy who served during World War II, Korea, and then an army of volunteers and the most wheelchairs I have ever seen in my entire life. Now, I have been told that this is the most spry group that most of these people have ever seen. The Honor Flight is a national organization that puts these things together, but then the fundraising is up to regional areas. And so this is the Honor Flight of North Dakota, Minnesota, and it really does like eastern North Dakota, western Minnesota. So there's people here from Shelley, Crookston, Fergus Falls, Minnesota, and then Park River, Devil's Lake, Fargo, Wahpeton, Jamestown, that type of thing. So a lot of people who are in the same region together. We get on a plane. It's a chartered plane. This one took off out of Grand Forks. So I had to be there by 5 o'clock in the morning, meaning I had to get up at 3:30 and then drive to Grand Forks this morning, which is 75 miles away. I have not slept since then, and I haven't really eaten anything today. And then the second that we got to our hotel, it was taking forever to check in. And so a bunch of these veterans were like, listen, let me buy you a drink. Let me buy you a drink. And so I'm like 5 gin and tonics deep. And
that's a lot of G&Ts, buddy. You're not supposed to do that many G&Ts.
I know. And in fact, while we're recording this right now, I have to throw on a sweater vest in a second because that's what I chose as my classy outfit, and make my way down to a banquet hall where there is a salad with French dressing on it waiting for me. And then I think I'm going to sneak away afterwards and go to a Buffalo Wild Wings I saw just so I can fill my stomach with something.
So, okay, so then like what's on the itinerary for this trip then? How long are you there?
Here's the thing. We got to Washington, D.C. Actually, technically, it's the Baltimore Washington International Airport. We land, and there's a huge crowd of people there to applaud these veterans getting off the plane, which is awesome. And then we immediately went to the U.S. Army Museum, which I'm pretty sure is in Virginia. And so we toured the U.S. Army Museum, and then we went to the World War II Memorial, where there must be over 100 veterans on this trip. And they all got together, and they took a big group photo with the Lincoln Memorial in the background. And everywhere we go, people applaud these men and women who served our country in one way, shape, or form. And it's pretty interesting. And also, like, I've been collecting stories, and I'm actually hoping to include them in a future JJ Meets World. So, for example, I talked to a guy named Lem, and Lem joined the Army, and when he joined the Army, they asked him about, like, well, what do you want to do? And he goes, well, I failed out of being an English teacher. So they said, okay, well, we're going to go have you take this test. He took a test. And after he took the test, they're like, okay, we're going to send you to the University of Indiana for 6 months, and we're going to teach you Russian. And so his job was to monitor Russian radio signals and decide whether or not there was anything interesting and, of use to the U.S. government. And so I said, so Lem, how's your Russian? And he spoke a little bit of it, and he goes, but it's not great because if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So that's just one example of the stories that I've already encountered while I'm on this trip. And now we are at the Hyatt Regency in Crystal City, which is a very nice hotel. And so far, so good because their internet seems to be really holding out while we're doing this recording. So meanwhile, while I'm waiting to get checked in, all these vets wanted to buy me drinks, and I'm not going to say no to them because I worry that I'm going to be their little mascot rather than a media personality.
Well, are they not letting you pick the drink?
Oh no, they're letting me pick the drink, but then
because you just say, "Oh, thanks, I'll take a Diet Coke."
Okay, so that's the thing is because they're drinking like straight whiskey. Right? They're Army, Marine, Air Force. These guys know how to drink, and I don't want to.
And you have never served in war.
No, I have not. Not only have I never served in war, but most of my anecdotes involve movies that I've watched.
Like, raise your hand if you haven't killed a guy.
I'll be like, oh, that would be me. That would be me. So They also are starting to do this. There was like a woman sitting at the edge of the bar, and she was drinking alone and having a meal. And they're like, "Hey, JJ, you're young. Go talk to that pretty girl." And I said, "Well, I'm married, you guys." And they're like, "Well, you're still young. It would be weird if one of us old guys went up there." And so I went up.
As though there's like a need, like this
Right.
needs to be done.
So she was drinking a drink that was like bright lime green. I had never seen it before. And so I went up and I was like, "Excuse me, what are you drinking?" She goes, "Oh, it's a Midori sour." And I said, "Wow, it's really like a bright lime green color. It looks like it's unhealthy." And she goes, "Well, isn't all alcohol unhealthy?" And I said, "Too true, too true." And then I cheersed her cup and walked away. So that is the level I have right now as far as being some like I don't know if they're counting on me like striking up a conversation so that we can get attention in some way, shape, or form. But I'm like, you guys have picked the wrong mascot.
So hold on. So you're in your hotel room right now, right?
I am right now, room
Okay,
428 at the Hyatt Regency Crystal City.
and this is going out like the very next day. So basically,
Bingo.
if someone wants to use this episode to stalk you, they could do that for a solid day now. Well, like when do you leave? When do you come back to Fargo? Tomorrow?
I leave on Tuesday. So we have
you
a
got
whole
a
day
solid
of
day.
sightseeing and memorials and everything tomorrow, and then I will be back on Tuesday.
So are you broadcasting during this?
So I will be interviewing people and sending it back to the studio, but while I'm gone, my co-host Amy Eiler will be hosting other people.
Okay.
Like she'll have other guest hosts who are there during that time, which is good because right now I am in no fit state to broadcast. I shouldn't even be podcasting right now.
Well, I mean, what are you? So, I mean, is you keep talking about like I hope they don't make me XYZ. Are you planning on going back down there once we're done podcasting and getting more GMPs?
Because they're having a banquet, and so I got to go down to the army men and have a banquet. In fact,
Okay, so
while we talk, I'm going to be switching into my dress clothes.
Yeah, but one of them's got to be like an army cook, right? Just shout like, "Hey, cookie," and whoever answers you, ask them for food instead of booze.
Well, that's the thing is I expect that there will be some kind of a salad that I can eat. But right now, I found my key on the ground. Hold on. There we go.
If you were ever drafted, JJ, what do you think they're doing with you? Where do you think they're putting you? USO?
Yeah, exactly. I'm going over hill, over dale when you go off the dusty. They made me sing God Bless America on the plane, but I got to use the plane loudspeaker. So dream come true right there. I should also explain, too, that this is going to be a shorter episode of JJ Meets World because I messed up on the recording, and now I've got to make it down to the banquet because
as I was waiting for you to log into this Ncast recording, I was like, I bet he forgot some cable or something for his microphone, and I pictured in my head. Like you've talked a lot, obviously, because I've moved so many times. You've talked a lot about how I will store things in like plastic tubs, right? Like storage containers. Mm-hmm. A number of times when I've helped you move, the experiences of you, like somehow you have like 20 clothes baskets. And
correct.
You just rando throw anything in the vicinity in these clothes baskets. And I was picturing that's what you were doing to travel to DC. Like you just brought a clothes basket with you, threw a bunch of shit into it that you thought you'd be able to need. That was it.
I mean, I strategically planned my underpants for this trip. And here's the problem. So I had company staying at my house, so I couldn't actually go down and get like my microphone the way I intended. And sure enough, on the flight, I thought to myself, I'm like, I don't think I brought a USB-C to USB-C, but maybe I've got enough dongles where that won't make a difference. Nope, not at all. I totally messed it up.
Do you have your, I guess, you probably don't have a MacBook cable with you, do you?
So if someone's like, hey, why does JJ sound weird in this episode? It is because I'm using the internal microphone in my computer for the first time ever to record a JJ Meets World episode. I tell you, every little bit seems to be a little more of a disaster. Also, I brought a water bottle, an empty water bottle, because I'm like, I'm going to be good for the environment. I'm going to do something nice. And then I filled it up at the airport, put it in my laptop bag. And when I got to Baltimore, my laptop bag was soaking wet. Clearly, there was a
Ooh,
bad seal.
no.
And so I think I ruined 2 books, but what are you going to do?
This is not turning out for you. This feels like you're in like the first third of a John Candy movie. Like, oh, he's got to go on the honor flight, and this isn't working, and that's not working,
Well, you
and
know
he's
what I think it's
alone in
really going to be?
Washington D.C.
Every time there's a goofball military comedy, it usually starts with a fish out of water story, right? So think about Stripes, think about Captain America, the first Avenger. This is my first act of the movie where it's like, gosh, nothing's going great, but luckily I've got a bunch of seasoned veterans, literally, who can
Have you
show me
been?
how to shape up and be Bristol fashion.
Have you have you been to DC before?
Yeah, in fact, I was here just this last spring.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah. I actually think DC is a really cool town to visit. And it's weird. It's like, yeah, this is just like in every movie of Washington DC I've ever seen. It's just like this.
It is. I was asking one of my coworkers, "What's your favorite movie that's based in Washington D.C.?" And he had a couple good suggestions, but I'm like, "What about Olympus Has Fallen? What about
Oh,
Dave, where Kevin Kline is a dead ringer for the president of the United States? He does like a presidential impersonator." And he goes, "Nope, those weren't on my list. Didn't even crack the top 10."
mm.
Okay, so I know that this is an ultra short episode of JJ Meets World, and we got to tie it up here pretty quick because my understanding is there will be a doo-wop group performing at the banquet, and I do not want to miss that. Also, I this is a big deal for me. They served sandwiches on the bus that had mayonnaise on them, and I ate them. Tucker, I ate
Whoa.
them. I ate the chicken sandwiches with mayonnaise on them.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, the plot thickens. I think maybe we're learning something about you. I mean, maybe you are you said you're putting on a brave face, right? Maybe your
Yeah.
bravery is coming through and you're learning that some things aren't going to hurt you.
I mean, I did not enjoy it. In fact, that's one of the reasons I think
Why?
that, like,
Okay. I actually don't understand why you would go to that depth. Like, I love veterans as much as the next person. And if they were like, "Hey, eat this sandwich," I'd be like, "No, I don't want it.
it
Thanks.
was mainly because they
Thanks for the
kind of
freedom. Thanks
they,
for
they
giving me the freedom to tell you no. I don't want your fucking third GNT. I want a goddamn Diet Coke, and I want you to leave me alone."
they first of all, my hotel is very near a very fancy Buffalo Wild Wings, so I've got that going for me. But I think what happened was they handed out all these sandwiches, and I ate the chips out of it, and everyone was kind of like looking at me like, "Why aren't you eating your sandwich?" And so I opened the sandwich and I verified that yes, there was in fact mayonnaise on it. And then I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna muscle through this thing. I'm gonna do my best to not seem like a total and complete spaz in this
so,
situation. And
so is it just mustard that makes you actually vom?
no, I
Because if
mean, if
you,
there had been mustard on this thing, I wouldn't have been able to eat it. But I was like, maybe I can eat around where all the mayonnaise was. And I got like 6 bites in before I was like, this is enough. And to make matters worse, I was washing it down with a diet Pepsi. And so I've had a rough day in our nation's capital.
yeah, I'll take a Diet Coke. We only have Diet Pepsi. Fuck.
Yeah, Reagan International Airport, which think we fly out of, is all Pepsi products. So I'm not too jazzed about that.
I remember one time, God, I was on a shoot. I can't remember what we were shooting. I was having a really bad day, like nothing was going right. And then I just thought I needed to get like a large ice cold Pepsi from Taco Bell, just like a fountain soda, right? And Taco Bell was the closest thing. And I had all my coworkers with me, and I pulled in and I said, "All I want is just a large Pepsi, please." And the guy said, like, "Our Pepsi is broken. Do you want cherry Pepsi?" and I almost told the guy to go fuck himself. Like I had to stop myself from being like, are you fucking kidding me? There's no goddamn way I want cherry Pepsi.
These things are drastically different, sir.
Yeah, I think I got a Baja Blast.
Oh, and that is no substitute. None whatsoever when it comes down to it.
No.
Okay, so Tucker, I'm gonna make like Angela Lansbury and Seashell out of this place. Thank you very much for recording from far, far away, and I hope I can find that other episode because it was really good. We had some good stuff in it, and I don't think we can recreate it.
And then, hey, we'll be an episode ahead. We'll be a week ahead. Think of it that way.
Look at us. Everything's coming up, JJ.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information.